Alright, so today I wanted to share with you guys 5 tips. Now, there's a lot of content out on YouTube that I think is targeted at getting people to understand like how to go from a beginner level in Street Fighter 6 to an intermediate level. You know, anti-airing, checking dashes, how to use the system mechanics, things like that. So I thought I would sort of offer like the next level of tips, which in my opinion these are 5 things which will take you from an intermediate level at Street Fighter 6 into an advanced level. And these are 5 things that even some pro players aren't integrating into their games yet. So I think these things are going to turn out to be really important as the meta develops. And the very first thing on my list, number 1, make the most of punish counter. Now that might sound obvious, but a lot of people only treat the punish counter mechanic as an important factor when they're considering DP punishes. So a lot of people will lab like a proper punish counter combo for like a DP punish, for example. But there are so many more situations where you can optimize punishes using punish counter. Let me show you one that I've been doing a lot lately that I think people need to do more. So punish counter state is on every single move in the game. If it's punishable, you get 4 extra frames of hit advantage. And this massively improves your punish game on a lot of things. So here's an example right here. I see this all the time in matches. People block Juri's dive kick, and they punish like this. They'll do jab jab special. And that is leaving so much damage on the table. Because you have a punish counter state on this jab. Even if you start with a jab, which might not even be optimal, this can be -8. This can be anything up to -8. You do not want to start your punish with jab jab special, because you are just leaving huge amounts of damage on the table. So like one example, JP for example can link jab into back medium punch on punish counter, which adds a big chunk to his damage, but that's not even the whole story. A lot of characters in this game can link lights into heavies on punish counter. You can get like a really huge combo if you take advantage of this. So I don't ever want to see people blocking moves in this game that are -4 or -5 with jab jab special. You always want to be looking for the punish counter combo. So that's tip number 1. Number 2 is think about perfect parries more. And again, you're probably thinking, what the hell does he mean by that? Think about perfect parries. Well, I think most players right now are doing very stupid things when they get a perfect parry. So, let's say you get the perfect parry. I've done it on Juri's sweep here. The amount of times I've seen people do stuff like this on perfect parry drives me nuts. I don't think you should ever be spending all that drive gauge on a perfect parry combo that's scaled to shit. I just spent 3 bars of drive gauge on a drive rush cancel to do 1600 damage. If the combo's gonna kill, if it's in a KO range, go for it. Outside of that, you've got to stop doing extremely expensive combos when you're scaled like that. In my opinion, when you land a perfect parry, you should be doing one of 3 things. You should either maximize corner carry and Oki, so do whichever combo will take your opponent to the corner for the least possible resources. So for example, I could do something like this. Into a jump in. I mean, other characters have got different options. Ken, for example, can do, you know, run Tatsu to just drag you to the corner. You should always be focusing on Oki and corner carry if you're a rushdown character. The other things you can do, which I recommend, is if you're playing a zoner, for example, like JP, you can actually focus on, rather than doing damage your opponent's drive gauge. So after the perfect parry, one thing I like to do is this. So, if you notice, the punish counter on the stand fierce here does almost 1 bar of drive gauge damage to Juri. And then the drive impact on the second one does another bar of damage. So although this combo does very little damage, this is only doing 1080, I've done nearly 2 bars of drive gauge damage to my opponent. So for a character that thrives on destroying the opponent's resources, this is also a really good option. The last thing you want to do in Burnout, which again is character specific, punish counter sweep. This is something that I've been doing a lot lately. If you don't know, on punish counter, sweeps give you a true hard knockdown that can't be back rolled and have one specific timing. It's effectively like a crush counter sweep from Street Fighter 5. And if your character has strong set play tools like JP does, also like Kimberly for example can put down a spray can, you can do this. So you're forfeiting damage on the crush count. You're forfeiting damage on the perfect parry combo, but in exchange you're getting really good set play from the hard knockdown on sweep. So you can do this, or this. You know, whatever you want to do, because obviously the next combo is the one that's unscaled. Oh yeah, one last thing you can do, which is particularly useful if you're cornered, for example. If you're cornered, you'll see this a lot too. The back throw has a lot of useful properties. Again, it doesn't do that much damage, but nothing really does much damage after a perfect parry, so it doesn't really matter. But what's really good about punish counter back throw is not only do you steal corner control, but this does 1 bar of drive gauge damage to your opponent. So you get a huge positional advantage, and you also get 1 bar stolen from your opponent's drive gauge. So this is another thing you'll see a lot after a perfect parry. But basically my point here is that when you do a perfect parry, your combo is going to be so ridiculously scaled that you really should not be spending lots of resources on the combo unless it's going to kill. You should think more about Oki, you should think more about corner carry, you should think more about set play, you should think more about screen positioning. Okay, my third tip to improve in this game and take your game to the next level is maximizing burnout. Now, another thing that drives me nuts in this game, something that I see people do a lot, is they get their opponent into burnout, they get themselves into a really good position, and then they do this. They do that. The absolute second that they get their opponent into burnout, immediate drive impact stun. Now, again, this is one of those things where you can do that if your opponent is immediately threatened by a kill range, if they've got like 50% health and you've got level 3, for example. But if your opponent has, say, like 70% health left, I don't think this is ever a good idea. Because you're not going to kill them, and once the combo is over, they're going to get all of their drive resources back. They're going to go back to 6 bars, and in a lot of cases, they can steal the round back immediately. Burnout is a terrible state to be in this game. It lasts a very long time. You get so much time to bully your opponent and take advantage of the extra block stun that you really don't want to be stunning people unless you're in a situation where the stun combo is going to kill and you really need it. So what I like to do with JP is just lock people down in the corner and do this all day. Stand fierce into fireball. Obviously it varies from character to character again what you want to do. If you have a fireball, this is a very strong string to do for 2 reasons. First of all, this does good chip damage. Every single time I land that fireball on block, they're taking a chunk of chip damage. I can just harass with this in the corner. The second thing is, one really important property of level 1 supers in this game is that they do not beat projectiles. So people will be mashing level 1 as hard as they can because they think you're doing this. They expect the normal into drive impact, so they always try and level 1, and they just get hit by the fireball. Let me show you. So one thing you can do is you can do this, like I said, and your opponent is so scared of the possibility that you cancelled into drive impact that they're mashing level 1, and they just get hit. So not only are they still in burnout, they're still cornered, they've lost a whole bar of super gauge, which is super important, and they're now still at risk of getting dizzied. So I like to just bully people in the corner with this, and then once they finally give up and accept the fireball is coming. That's when you finally stun them. So, again, my advice here is think about how long Burnout lasts for. And the other thing is that a lot of people in Burnout panic so hard and try and jump out the corner. So another reason why I like to stand at this range here and bully with stuff is because this range here is also perfect to anti-air people trying to escape the corner. So I've also had rounds where I just sit at this distance while my opponent is in Burnout. They just jump forward, anti-air, jump forward, anti-air, jump forward, anti-air, and then I go for the stun. And, you know, I can steal an entire round just from bullying in the corner in Burnout. So again, this is the whole point of this is just do not see Burnout as just a race to stun as fast as possible. It lasts a lot longer than you think it does, and you should take full advantage of it. Okay, my fourth tip is understanding and taking advantage of the mechanic called forced knockdown. If you don't know what a forced knockdown state is, it's a mechanic that was kind of introduced late into Street Fighter V, where if you hit your opponent out of certain air moves, things like Dhalsim's teleport, your opponent gets forced into a juggle state. Now in Street Fighter V, this mechanic was kind of rare. It was something that you only needed to think about for a small number of characters. But in Street Fighter VI, forced knockdowns are everywhere. Pretty much any move that is done in the air or has like an aerial trajectory to it puts the opponent in a forced knockdown state. Even things that you wouldn't assume do. Let me show you what I mean. So even a move like Ryu's Tatsu, if you notice, if you hit him out of it at any point while he's spinning, he gets put into a forced knockdown state. It says it on the UI on the left hand side. And this leads to a full juggle combo. And like I said, this is everywhere in this game. I've got a quick list to run through, just so you guys realize how common the forced knockdown state is. It's on Luke's air flash knuckle, Kimberly's elbow drop and forward heavy kick, Marissa's Superman punch, Lily's condor dive and condor spire, JP's teleport, Juri, Jamie and Cammy all have it on their dive kicks, Ryu and Ken have it on both ground and air tatsu, Honda has it on headbutt and butt slam, it's on Blanca's Blanca ball, it's on Ken's dragon lash kick, Chun's Hazanshu, Dhalsim's everything basically. Dhalsim has it on teleport, float, air fireballs. So you really need to figure out how to combo out of this state effectively and to maximize your damage. So for example, one common thing that I see a lot is people will check Dhalsim doing air teleport with a jab, and then that'll be it. They'll just get a knockdown, and then they'll go for some Oki. This is another thing that I want to see like so much more work done on, because you can get so many good combos off this. Lab it for your character, figure out what max damage is. JP has a lot of really cool stuff you can do here. But like I said, tons of moves in this game have this state, and you want to make the absolute most of it because you get really good juggles out of it. Oh, last thing to mention about the forced knockdown state, it activates from any normal. And what I mean by that is if I check Dhalsim's teleport here with a jab, or a medium punch, or a heavy, all three of them will put the opponent in forced knockdown state, which is actually much stronger than in Street Fighter V. Street Fighter V did not do the forced knockdown state if you got hit with a light. So if you checked Dhalsim's teleport with a jab in Street Fighter V, you didn't get this, but you do in 6, which is a huge like nerf to Dhalsim and any character that uses this state a lot, because it means that if you just jab check them out of stuff like this, they might die for it. Okay, my final tip for improving in Street Fighter 6 is kind of an abstract one, and I've just labeled it turns aren't linear in Street Fighter 6. So, what I mean by that is that if you played Street Fighter V and to a lesser extent Street Fighter 4 a lot, those games had a very clear-cut structure of like my turn versus your turn. Like the +2, -2 meta was everywhere. There were certain strings where you could challenge, and there were certain strings where you could challenge, and it was very much like non-interactive gameplay. Street Fighter 6 still does have turns in the strict sense, but they are nowhere near as straightforward as they used to be because of this. The possibility of a perfect parry after ending your turn completely changes lots of interactions. So I'll show you one example. So here's a common interaction that you would see all the time in Street Fighter 5. The player 1 Ken is doing stand heavy kick at space distance, where it's not punishable with crouch medium kick, and the other Ken is taking their turn back afterwards with a crouch medium kick. You would see these kinds of like my turn, your turn interactions all the time. This was the Street Fighter 5 kind of like meta in the mid-range. Street Fighter 6, you need to always be aware that when you do minus frames, you can still steal back a turn, and it is potentially very rewarding. So, like a lot of people are not likely to walk up and throw you in this situation because you're so far away. So it's actually surprisingly safe to just tap parry here, and it covers for a lot of options. The only real risk here is if your opponent decides to hard read you tap parrying and walk up throw. But this is what I mean, is that any situation where you're like, let's say -3, -4, maybe even -5, but you're spaced out from the opponent, is potential for a mix-up or a punish. So if you found these tips useful, I'd really appreciate if you could leave a sub on your way out, and I will see you guys in the next video.